I followed Todd Howard out to the Microsoft offices up in Washington. He's just sitting on the bench with a smile on his face, smoking a cigarette. Like that. It's a candy cigarette, though. And he saw me and he said, "Hey, Catman." And I said, "Well, hey there, old Todd Howard. What you doing out here? Admiring the view? Buying a new copy of Windows 10? Out now on all platforms?" And Todd said, "Oh, they fired me, Mr. Catman." I said, "What? Just because Fallout 76 is the worst game ever made doesn't mean they should fire you." And Todd said, "Well, that's what I told them. But before I go, I got one last thing I need to do. I gotta make one last big score." So he hands me my cat, which he had stolen, which I didn't even know he had stolen her, but he handed her over. And he walks off into the Microsoft offices, his head held high, wearing a signature white tank top, would you call it? And I sat down on the bench with Sadie. And I said, "Sadie, I think Todd's finally lost it. They fired him because of the performance of Fallout 76. And he just keeps trying to sell people Skyrim. It's not healthy. It's not healthy to talk about Skyrim, even though it's the greatest game ever made. Just over and over again. He's got to do something new. He's got to try something new, Sadie." And Sadie, she just looked at me and purred. She's a kitty. And I decided, you know what, Sadie? I'm going to be a friend to Todd Howard. I'm going to wait right here until he comes back out. And if he's crying, I'm going to give him a hug. If he's not crying, I'm going to give him a hug because Todd deserves it. Because he's a good man, even though he tries to sell us Skyrim all the time. Exactly 30 minutes later, Todd comes out strutting like this. He comes over to me and says, "Hey, Catman, see, you've been waiting for me." I said, "Yeah, Todd, I was thinking about things. I was thinking about you, Todd." Todd said, "Well, I showed them all." I said, what do you mean?" "I got one last big score and we..." I said, "What?" "Just sold Microsoft Skyrim." I said, "Todd, you just sold a copy of Skyrim to the entire company of Microsoft?" And he said, "Yeah." He handed me a piece of paper. $7.5 billion. That's more money than Skyrim has ever made up until that point. I just look at Todd and say, "Todd, how the hell are you doing this?" He gets down real close, gives me a wink and says, "I'm Todd Howard, and this isn't the end for me."